So does that justify everything that you do?
Excuse me, let me tell you something. What do you think they were doing it for? Because they were trying to save us from poverty? No, they did it because they needed us. It's honor and family and loyalty. And some of us wanted a piece of the action. Now, we weren't educated like the Americans, but we had the balls to take what we wanted.
Welcome back to the final regular season episode of XFL football, brought to you by Driving to the Top Productions. I have two familiar faces with me. We will be doing a Week 10 recap, also with a playoff preview for this weekend's conference championship games in the XFL. First, I'd like to bring on a good friend and co-host, Jamie Malloy. How we doing,
Evan? I'm good. It's good to see you again. After being on last night's rocking 2-hour episode of the USFL, where it was you, me, Adam, and we got to interview an awesome player from the Birmingham Stallions by the name of D. Gordon, and he was just a great guy to interview. And now I'm doing a profile story of him on my football exclusive website for spring football called DefiantTakesFootball.com.
Absolutely. That'll be a great read, and I can't wait for it to be out so we can put it all over our social medias. And now the man of the hour, the big dog, as he takes a sit backstage, bringing in the producer, also known as Sports Talking It, the man we all love, Adam. How we doing, man?
Hey guys, how we doing? Good show last night. Absolutely, D. Gray killed it. I did talk to him today. He said he had a lot of fun, and then he killed it at some COD last night after he got off. So that was our little conversation of the day. But yeah, he said he had a good time, and that's what we're all about. That's what we're all about, having a good time. And I like having a good time. You guys like having a good time?
I love having a good time.
Absolutely. Like Carly Rae Jepsen's song says, we don't even have to try. It's always a good time.
There you
go. Absolutely. We appreciate that.
So I think it's a wrap, where we got the first year of the XFL done for regular season, of course, and I there was a lot of scenarios that could have played out. That I don't know if everyone caught on to them or not, but let's talk about it. Let's get there.
So with all that being said, we'll talk the scenarios as we go through the games. So we're going to start off with our first matchup of Week 10, which is Orlando Guardians and the St. Louis Battlehawks. How did you guys feel about that game?
That game I thought was wild. It had a lot of it had playoff implications, obviously, for St. Louis. But it also had implications for Seattle later in the game, because St. Louis obviously had to win to keep their hopes alive. But St. Louis also had to win because it involved weird tiebreaker scenarios on who was going to get in. But it was also a chance for Orlando, who at the end of the year was playing a lot better despite only having one win under Coach Buckley, and they were playing for pride, and they were playing with some guys who were playing for NFL jobs and everything. Oh, we got a nice little chat here for Fourth and Flex. Give them hell, boys. Nice compliment. We will do that. And so early in this game, we had a fake punt when the Guardians were down 9-6, and it ended up being an 84-yard fake punt for a touchdown by Mac Brown, and the Guardians went up 12-9 for it. And Quentin Dormany then came in at the 6-minute mark, and he threw a nice touchdown there to give the Guardians a 20-17 lead. But this game ended up being wild as St. Louis scored 53 points. But what may have ended up hurting them at the end was giving up 28 to Orlando. But a really fun fact in this game was star quarterback A.J. McCarron came back from an injury, and he threw for 420 yards passing and played like the A.J. McCarron we all knew he was playing like at the beginning of the year.
Adam?
Yeah, I was gonna say AJ McCarron, 6 touchdown passes, just absolutely crushed it. I'm surprised Orlando put it in 3 quarterbacks. They all threw for over a touchdown apiece. Orlando gave them a little bit of hell to end the season. I mean, they weren't going anywhere; they're just playing for pride, and I thought they did all right. They see it. Oh my fucking shit! St. Louis did what they had to do. They had to win, and they needed some help, obviously, to get into the playoffs. But we'll find out if they got in as we go on here.
Exactly.
And Hakeem Butler had a huge game too. He had 9 receptions for 164 and 2 touchdowns. And then Darius Shepard, 6 for 96 and a touch. So A.J. McCarron definitely threw the ball around a good bit. They really needed him in that week that he did not play. But that's all I got. What you got?
I got something else. Before you talk, Emmett, I was going to say this is also the same Battlehawks team that 3 weeks ago when A.J. McCarron got hurt, the team actually signed a very familiar name in the NFL world. They signed a quarterback by the name of Vinny Testaverde Jr. That's right, folks, the son of 14-year vet Vinny Testaverde Sr., who was drafted number 1 overall in the 1987 draft by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and played for basically like many teams in the NFL, but was known for a few good years in the 1990s with the New York Jets and head coach Bill Parcells. And while Vinny Testaverde Jr. didn't get to suit up for the St. Louis Battlehawks, he still was signed by the team and was inactivated, but it was still noted that the son of an NFL legend got signed by a team and was ready to have his name called and be behind A.J. McCarron. Now you could go ahead, Evan.
So, Jamie, I have 2 questions. One, I'll give you the first one, and once you answer it, I'll go to Adam for the second one. We had done, and some multiple shows that we have done together, we kept talking about how we felt that the Orlando Guardians, although they were struggling, we started to see the progression. How do you feel that the way they ended the season, being closer in games, having more opportunity to win these games, how that will affect this organization next season?
Well, I think it starts by giving Buckley another chance and making sure he picks the right talent with the number 1 pick in the draft. Maybe he picks a quarterback with the number 1 overall pick that he can build around. And hey, those fake punts he started to call at the end of the year were working. Maybe start incorporating those more as the season goes on.
You bring up an interesting point right there, Jamie. I didn't mean to cut you off, but while you were talking about it, I just wanted to. These punters, can they throw the ball or what?
Yeah.
This is the second one that I've seen on the highlights that just went for bombs.
Yeah, absolutely. Because St. Louis pulled off one a couple weeks ago.
Right, and that just caught my eye. And was it this game that the guy threw that bomb?
Yeah, the punter, he threw it 84 yards for a touchdown against St. Louis.
Yeah, that's probably farther than he kicks the damn ball.
It was Matt Brown.
It's
But yeah,
crazy how that works out.
I think I'm amazed by how far these guys can throw the ball.
It's
Just
crazy how it
saying,
works out when you
maybe
think
this
about.
is the. Go ahead, Evan. I'm sorry. Then I'll say it.
It's crazy how it works out when it comes to kickers and punters because you hear the stories all the time that these guys are all-time track runners in high school. They were basketball players, they were golfers, soccer players. And the old narrative was that all these guys came from soccer. I know in high school, one of our kickers played soccer and the other one was a weightlifter. So I'm not surprised that these guys are coming from other opportunities. I know that, like, when you think about, I want to say Marquette King played a different position before coming a punter in college, and ultimately making becoming a star punter in the NFL before running into some legal issues. But Jamie, I'll let you continue before I ask Adam my next question.
But this is why you create a league like this. You some of the things that happened in the old NFL, like Brian Moorman actually was one of the fastest punters in the NFL with the Bills. He ran like a 4.3 40-yard dash. It was an all track star. And they used to use him on fake punts. So he would always run for the first down. But this was after the old school XFL and the USFL. But I think by bringing these leagues back, they're bringing these fake punts into these leagues. So by doing that, you're maybe creating new type of punters and stuff to bring back into the NFL because you're trying it in these league of opportunities so that they can try it into the NFL once they get their opportunities there. And you're re-bringing some of that magic back to that league by doing it in the NFL and the USFL. So
Absolutely. So, Adam, the second question that I had was, seeing how AJ McCarron took over the game and played how he ultimately played this year. Do you think AJ McCarron can pick up a backup spot coming into camp if there's an injury?
Here's my question: you're a starting quarterback in a league where you get to see your kids, you get to see your family. Um, you probably were you look. He seemed to be very smart with his money. He doesn't seem to be all glitzy. So if AJ McCarron played his cards right and saved his money and did the right thing and says, maybe him and his wife like St. Louis and they want to stay there. And I grant it, you want to go back to the NFL, but AJ McCarron has kids now, so maybe stability be good for him, and he's a starting quarterback on a team already, where I don't see him going anywhere as the starter. I mean, but that's just my thoughts on it.
and Evan, like Adam said, I don't know about this, Evan, but if you saw on his Twitter, he said, I can't wait to come back next year and play for Coach Anthony Beck, where I belong in St. Louis, and I want to come back and win a championship. He already said on his Twitter he wants to be back in the XFL.
Absolutely. And I think that's a great thing being said. But Adam, you brought up a great point because that's something that Jamie and I had talked about earlier, where when it comes to guys like AJ McCarron, guys like AJ McCarron, where they can show out, be the top guy of the league if they're not really worried about money, if they're already financially set. But it also brings the question, at least for me, what about guys like AJ Green? What about guys like Philip Lindsay? What about guys like, let's say, Calais Campbell in 2 years? If he still wants to play, but he wants to come to the XFL and make a certain amount of money, these guys can still play and not necessarily have to do the long time ramp up. They get their entire year off. They play for the summer and go do other things. That one helps this league grow, but it also gives something for the fans. So I think you both bring up a great point in that, but I just wanted to ask the question to see, could you guys at least see the number one quarterback in the league jump ahead? Because I still have questions about Ben DiNucci, but we'll get to him and his team later.
I was going to say maybe Ben DiNucci, but we'll talk about him when we get there for sure.
Does anybody have a player of the game as far as it goes for this Orlando and St. Louis matchup?
AJ.
6 touchdowns, buddy.
Absolutely.
Orlando, I got Mac Brown, the punter, for the fake punt.
Yeah, that was a great play. So with that being said, guys, we'll go ahead and jump into our second matchup of the week, which
Sebastian,
is
hold on real quick, Ev. Sebastian does get talked to because he had 2 interceptions.
Okay, that's fair. Our second matchup will be the DC Defenders as they finish off Week 10 against the San Antonio Brahmas to go into the playoffs. Adam, what were your thoughts on this game?
San Antonio should have won this game. They missed that field goal to win the game with 30 seconds left.
Again, beating themselves with injuries and also injuries. So that's a great point. Was there any players, plays, highlights, or anything like that stood out to you?
The Brahmas offense was not very good. Cone 34, 48, 312. But Jaquez, Jaquez, is that it?
Yeah.
Patrick. He only had 41 yards, but two of those carries went into the end zone. Now Lucky got 3 receptions, 3 balls thrown to him, 3 of 3 on targets for 84 yards with no touchdowns, but Alex Ellis got 2 touchdowns with only 24 yards. Temu 8 for 45 with 1 touchdown on the ground, and then 15 of 22, 271, 2 touchdowns and a pick also for Tamau on the offensive side. But
Jamie,
DC is the number 1 team in the league, so good teams find ways to win.
Absolutely. I actually have a question about that, but I'll ask it after Jamie gives his review of the game.
Okay, so this game was at 3:00. San Antonio was all they needed to do was win, and hindsight's 2020. But had John Parker Romo not missed that field goal, they would have gotten into the playoffs because we'll get into later why they would have gotten into the playoffs, but they didn't because they missed that field goal. But my MVPs were Tamau for DC because he's been just a consistent quarterback all year, and Jack Cohen for San Antonio because the last 2 weeks he finally played like the Jack Cohen he should have been all year because he was healthy.
Absolutely. So the question that I have for both of you, and this is more of an opinion-based thing. I felt like A.J. McCarron was going to be the MVP of the league this year. But due to the fact that they didn't make the playoffs, do you feel there's a chance for who I had coming in at second place, Jordan Tiamu, taking over as the league MVP this year?
There's a case for that. I mean, he's on one of the best teams.
We can have Evan. Can we address this question after we cover the games?
Yeah,
that's better, I think.
That way we don't ruin the show.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not a repeat of last night.
Yeah.
So you guys have given your MVPs. Were there any other thoughts on this game before we jump to the next one?
Hey, I think San Antonio, though, man, when they went down 19-3, though, against the best team in the league, it looked like it was going to be over. But once again, that coaching mentality of Hines Ward, and even with the injuries, that no-quit mentality, Evan, you and I talked about all year, it showed, and they came back, and that defense with the Joey Porter linebackers played well, too. And this is a team that I think next year, if they stay healthy, we're going to be talking, I think, 6-4 or 7-3, and they're going to be in the playoffs next year. And I think that even with 3-7 this year, they've got some guys that could probably make the league because they had some offensive talent, even though they were 3-7. They just couldn't put it together consistently.
Absolutely. Anything else, gentlemen?
I'm good.
All right, so we're going to jump into our third matchup of the week, which
The
was
Sunday
the Houston.
episodes.
The
Sunday games.
The Sunday games we're going to jump into. The final 2 games of Sunday in the regular season. The first one will be the Houston Roughnecks and the Arlington Renegades. Gentlemen, what were your thoughts on this game?
I think it's interesting because I just think both teams are trying to just play careful and run their vanilla game plans to get ready for next week. But I think it's a different scenario now for Arlington than it was in the beginning of the year, because Stoops didn't really he's got the defense, right? But he was kind of teetering with quarterbacks a lot. First he had Drew Platt, then he tried Kyle Sloter, and that didn't go very well. But I think he's got a consistent quarterback now with Luis Perez, and he's got a really good backup plan where he could put Kelly Bryant in for option plays. And because what he realized now is he's kind of building his team like DC and Houston, where you have a format where you can have a starting quarterback for the pass, and then you could put in a Kelly Bryant for the option plays, kind of like how DC has Jordan Ta'amu for the regular quarterback, and then you could put in De'Ara King for the run plays. And Houston's got Brandon 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 Sellers, I think, for the pass, and then you put in Cole McDonald for the option. So that's why that playoff game is going to be interesting, because it's a battle of 2 teams now that have the same format now in terms of how they use their quarterbacks. So we'll get into that later, but Arlington has a plan now. Stoops is figuring out how you win in the playoffs now. Houston does. So, but anyway, I thought Taylor Russolino played really well as he kicked those 2 field goals, and Houston did well with Cole McDonald winning 25-9. And my MVP was Louis Perez for Arlington, and my other MVP was Wade Phillips, as even though he got knocked down, he found a way to get back up for after that. And Wade Phillips is pretty spry for an older coach in the league. And I know that as a Bills fan, too. He was pretty spry back in the 90s, too. Good old Wade, right?
Always admired good old Coach Wade. Adam, what were your thoughts on this Week 10 matchup?
The Houston game?
Yes.
Well, if this matchup goes on next week, if it does, Arlington better find a way to score.
Yeah.
Field goals do not win games. Not against top-notch teams like Houston.
Absolutely. Did you have any standouts or any foreshadowing for maybe next week?
I guess Jeremy Cox, he had a big game, 21 for 120 and a touchdown, running back for the Roughnecks. That stood out to me on the stat sheet.
Absolutely. It's I think all of the stuff
Don't get me
that
wrong,
I have
Cole
questions about, I'm going to save to the end.
Cole
just
McDonald
because,
had a big game running too. Sorry, I meant to throw
You're
that
good.
in there. 8 for 66 and a touch.
I'm good. That's another thing that I was going to bring up, but I'm going to save that for a later question. We're going to go to our final game of Sunday before we do our playoff preview, which was the Vegas Vipers and the Seattle Sea Dragons. What were your thoughts, Adam, as far as this game and its implications for Seattle?
The Vipers knew they were done, and it looked like they didn't dress hardly anybody So Seattle could pretty much do whatever they wanted. I didn't see the big lineup from the Vipers this week like normal. Jalen McClendon, though, he only completed 6 passes for 201 yards.
Hey, I mean, isn't this recent stretch of games his first games played and started since high school?
That's it. What's that? I'm sorry. Someone's getting impatient over here.
Isn't this recent stretch of games his first chance starting since high school?
All right. Who, Jalen?
Yeah.
Well, this
If
is
I'm
his
not
third.
mistaken,
He was
'cause
6
if I'm
for
not
21.
mistaken-
He had 6 completed passes out of 21 attempts.
right. But what I'm saying is, as far as it goes for him, to me at least, it's
No, since
steady
at
improvement.
Baylor. Since at Baylor, he hadn't started a game since at Baylor, Evan. That's what it was.
So even then, since he's been at Baylor, he hasn't played that much, and I wasn't looking for consistency as much as I was looking for steady improvement and not consistent decline. So I'm not too upset with that as far as how it turned out. Hopefully he gets another chance this year, this coming season. Now that their season is over, maybe even jumping into the USFL to further sharpen his iron before he really takes a chance at either or at any organization being a true starter in spring ball. Jamie, what were your thoughts as far as this game went?
Yeah, Vegas saw the one bright spot in Vegas was Jalen McClendon and even Josh Lovett. Josh Lovett played really well when Rod Smith went down. Those were the two guys that didn't really play that much, and they were the two focal points of that offense in McClellan's 3 starts. And people forget, and it's that game against San Antonio that was his first start since at Baylor, and he won him the game in his first start. And I think what I love about him, he's a true dual threat quarterback that you could do a lot with him. He's like a Russell Wilson type. He's a read option RPO. He could throw the ball deep, great legs, smart quarterback, and I think he could be a USFL guy. Or if you wanted to stay in the XFL, if I'm Rod Woodson, I would make him the week 1 starter next year if he stayed with Vegas, because I think he earned that job after 3 games like that.
He does throw the deep ball. Matthew Sexton, 2 catches, 119 yards.
And
and I think the other guy had one. I think the other guy had 1 catch for 70 yards.
You saw him when he did that error when he fumbled the ball like that.
No, I didn't.
Showboating and got the ball hit out.
Yeah.
To me, man, I've never been one to showboat until I crossed the end zone. Looking at guys like Deshaun Jackson and anybody else you can think of in the NFL, you can look it up on YouTube when you're done watching us and see guys just drop the ball right at the end zone. College, pro ball, high school ball, it happens all the time. Go ahead.
Sorry, Evan. But here's the difference, though, and I didn't know this. When you do that in the NFL, you still retain the ball at that spot. It's not a turnover. If you do that in the NFL and in college, it's a touchback and a turnover on downs. That's the difference. And I didn't know that when I watched it in the XFL.
Huh. Well, that's good to know. I think these guys will continue to kind of be a little loose with the football, but that actually is good to know. Matter of fact, how do you feel about that rule, knowing that it's different from college football and the NFL?
I think it's okay, but Sexton's got to realize that if he makes the NFL, that he can't do that in the NFL or it's going to be a turnover. He's got to realize he was lucky that in the XFL you can get away with that and still retain the ball.
Absolutely. Do either one of you guys have any standouts for this game before we get into our previews?
I said Jalen McClendon and Ben DiNucci.
Yeah, Ben DiNucci had a huge game, 26 of 41, 339, 3 touchdowns, but he did have 2 interceptions. Also had 4 for 41 and a touch on the ground.
So
the interceptions are more because he's a daredevil the way he plays, but he also throws a lot of touchdowns too because he's a daredevil with the ball. He's risky. He makes a lot of high risk, high reward throws. That's why.
yes, he does. So we're just going to allude. I'm going to go ahead and ask the question since we're now done with the regular season and going to jump into the.
Can I go over something real quick?
Huh?
Can I go over something real
Go
quick?
ahead, Adam. Go ahead.
Yeah, go
All
ahead.
right, so end of season stats. I just wrote down 3 or 4 and went from there. Quarterbacks: Ben DiNucci, 2,671 yards, 20 touchdowns, 13 interceptions. Like you said, daredevil, 13 interceptions makes sense. AJ McCarron came in second, but he was 500 yards almost behind DiNucci with 2,150. I know he set out a game, so who knows where that would have ended up. I think they would have been a lot closer. But AJ McCarron also had 24 touchdowns and 6 interceptions. And then Jordan Ta'amu, 1894, 14 touches and 3 interceptions, but he did have 298 rushing yards and 3 touchdowns. Running backs, yard-wise, this just blew me away. Abraham Smith for the defenders, 791 yards and 7 touchdowns. And then Jacques Patrick with only 443 yards. So it just feels like the guys in first place are running away with yards and like leading that category. You know what I mean?
Yeah. If they
Brian
had
Hill,
more games, that's
416 for
easily.
St. Louis. Go ahead. What?
I was going to mention to that. That was something I was going to bring up in the post game preview for the postseason was that with Abraham Smith, if he has 4 more games, that's 1,000 yards plus this year. Do you think that he would have shown enough with that to maybe get a chance at training camp?
Maybe. I didn't get a chance to look up yards per game for Abraham Smith.
Fair enough. But continue.
Pearson for Seattle, 670, 4 touchdowns. Hakeem Butler for St. Louis, 599, 8 touchdowns. And then DC, Chris Blair, 594 with 3 touchdowns. So at least the wide receivers are a little bit close. But like I said in the show a while ago, these quarterbacks throw the ball around.
Mm-hmm.
Like every guy, like on the stat sheet, usually has 2 to 3 catches, even at the bottom of the sheet, which is pretty impressive in my eyes.
Absolutely. After watching this season, and after I say this, I'll pass it on to you, Jamie. I really felt like what I've learned, or at least opinion I have formed when it comes to the XFL this year, is that if they continue on this pace, quarterbacks and especially the high-powered offenses, but especially quarterbacks, if they're able to retain these guys, this league is going to grow fast. And if they move them onto greener pastures and can still keep the same success, I think that the XFL will have the title for spring league ball because it'll be the closest between college and pro game, but also that it'll be more marketable the longer that this league is around and as they try to expand. Jamie, what were your thoughts on this season overall?
I thought the minute The Rock and the owners were interviewed, the minute The Rock gave that speech about the dream of opportunity is yours now, and then he did XFL, let's ball out, baby. And then the owners said this is going to last long because we're putting an NFL brand out there and there's a bigger demand for it. I knew this wasn't a facade. This was going to truly be something, and that they weren't joking, that they were serious about it.
Mm-hmm.
And all the teams were running the same spread pro offenses, just like you see in college and the NFL and even the USFL. Basically, you see the same spread, air it out offenses too. So
Absolutely.
Here's another stat that blew me away. Jordan Williams for San Antonio had 38 solo tackles, 57 assists, and 89 tackles total. Javonte Beckett for Houston, 34-29, 63 total. And then the Vipers, CJ Avery with 62 total tackles. So there's a huge gap there too. Like how good is Jordan Williams? He had
I'll
69
actually
tackles in
pass
10
that
games.
on to you.
That's pretty impressive.
Yes.
he's definitely a tackling machine for a team that needs that.
It wasn't I know the guys threw the ball around a lot. It always seemed like the guys were throwing interceptions, but Houston's Avene Harris only had 5. Joe Powell for Arlington and Michael Joseph for DC, they had 4. I mean, it seemed like we were talking about interceptions all the time, but it's not it's not real high like I thought it would have been whenever I looked.
Mm-hmm.
That's my stats for the year.
The question that I would have to that is, yeah, when watching the game, it seemed like there were a lot of interceptions, but you can say the same thing about the NFL when it comes to, when it comes to interceptions for the season. But you look at it now, the top guys in the NFL for interceptions are 3, 4 in a year. When you're talking about the early 2000s, even in like 2005, the top pick guys were 8 to 10 interceptions in a year. So it shows that spreading the ball out and this spread style offense, that you're not going to be targeting one guy all year. Excuse me, it's been a long day, gentlemen.
Yeah, more defensive PIs called now too.
As well, right?
Back then there was less defensive PI and less D holding calls too.
Right. So, with all that being said, my take on the XFL this year is that it performed better than I thought it would be. I thought that because it was The Rock and his co-owner, that it was their first go around with this, that there might be some kinks, but they delivered, and they delivered well. Some might say they over delivered. But now as we go into the postseason, we're going to go with our very first matchup, which is a rematch of Week 10, Arlington versus Houston, gentlemen. Jamie, I'll let you go first on this one. What are your thoughts?
I kind of want to rebut Adam with what he said about Arlington, and he kind of said Arlington has to kick more than field goals and everything. But if you watch that game, and the announcers were saying it, both teams were kind of just, they weren't really putting they weren't really putting their full effort out there. I mean, backups were playing out there, and like they were kind of lollygagging around, and they weren't really running their full offenses. They were kind of just playing vanilla schemes and everything. But I think it's going to be a much closer game, even in Houston, because you're going to see, especially the way Bob Stoops was yelling at his team with the lack of execution on the mic and everything. And Wade Phillips, even though it's in Houston, like I think it could be a shootout between Arlington and Houston, because you're going to see both teams giving it their all in a divisional game like this. Even though one team's 7-3, the other one's 4-6, like they're going to go all out in this type of game, trying to get to the championship game in this matchup. So don't be surprised if it's closer than you think.
Adam?
I'm expecting a good matchup. It is playoffs. I don't know. I don't know. I'm sure it's a playoff atmosphere. I'm sure the stadium's going to be rocking. What kind of tickets does Houston sell? I mean, this is probably the only good thing going on in Houston beside the Astros, right?
It says they start at $24, which is, I don't know, like that's cheaper than obviously the NFL and the NBA and all the other leagues, but I don't know for the XFL if that's really a good price. I mean, I don't know.
From what I looked up, that's around league average. I know that the USFL's their tickets start at $20, and those are great seats. I know their last year's championship game was like 35, $40. So it's not bad. Um, the first question I want to bring over to Jamie is, with Arlington having a new quarterback in Luis Perez, who was formerly a Vegas Viper, how do you think this opportunity will really work for him as he continues his career in the XFL?
Well, I just found this out that last year in the USFL, he was with the New Jersey Generals and actually played a couple games. It was splitting time with Darius Johnson before Darius Johnson was named the permanent starter. So he does have some experience on a winning team. But as I said, they now have a format where he's a starting quarterback. And now you can plug in Kelly Bryant as the number 2 on run plays and option plays. So now Stoops has the format of a Houston and a DC where you can do that now. And he knows that that's the type of format that can win you in the playoffs and the regular season. So I think this will help Luis Perez in the playoff game. And like I said, Kelly Bryant could come in and spare him on the bench for one play, and then he could come back and run the offense. So yeah,
Absolutely, Adam. Do you have anything for this game?
No, I mean Houston was in first place, so I mean they're the top seed. You know, the underdogs sometimes are a little bit better than what everyone thinks. 7-3 is a good record in this league, made playoffs. So everyone's 0-0 coming into the end of the weekend.
Absolutely. The question that I have for this game before we go into the other matchup and final matchup of next week, goes to Houston and the fact that they had some struggles when it came to the middle of the season, where it was, what was it, Jamie, a 3-game losing streak?
Yeah, but they were also to some good teams too, though. That's the thing.
Absolutely. They lost to some good teams, and when you're a playoff contender, championship contender, you're supposed to win some of those games and not look the way that they did. So my question, or at least my thought, is, can they maintain the road that they've built for themselves? And do you think that they can actually be a real championship contender before we go into the championship week?
They did start to bounce back and show that they were the real Houston team after that stretch. I think they can, but like I said, I still think Arlington's going to come and give them a run for their money, so they can't sleep on Arlington. And like I said, Bob Stoops isn't no joke of a coach, so he's won at the college level now, but he's still going to go out there and show that he wants to win at a not an NFL pro level, but at this type of pro level too.
Absolutely. So as we jump into the next game, our final game of our preview, this is the Seattle Sea Dragons and the DC Defenders, where Seattle makes it in after having a thrilling end to their season, and DC really only having one fumble all year and losing to the Guardians, being the more dominant team that had a 2-quarterback system that helped them out early before Jordan Tiamu really took off and took control of this offense, while having Abram Smith being the leading rusher, and this defense led by Greg Williams. But then on the other side, you have a high-powered offense with Seattle and Ben DiNucci, the Daredevil, that Jamie alluded to earlier, and Adam brought up the numbers of, 24 touchdowns and 13 interceptions?
Yeah.
how do you guys see these two powerhouses actually matching up and probably being the game of the weekend in the first round or championship round of the XFL playoffs?
Um, honestly, to tell you the truth, I don't want to offend Battlehawks fans, but if you honestly look at who had a better shot at beating DC, knocking them off in the first round, Seattle has a better shot because I don't think St. Louis could have knocked them off in the first round. I think Seattle has a much better chance because if you watch that game, the second game, Seattle was a 2-point conversion away from beating them at home. They missed the 2-point conversion and they lost by a point. So, and the fact that you talk about Seattle's defense, was Seattle's head coach is Jimmy Haslett. You got to remember, Jimmy Haslett's a good defensive coach too. He's run some good defenses in his time too. And their defensive coordinator, Ron Zook. Ron Zook's been a good defensive coordinator in the NFL too. So it's not like those two can't run a defense either. So
Absolutely. We're going to pass it to the man of the hour, Adam. Your thoughts?
I'm going Seattle.
Wow, that's a shocker. And I was hoping one of you would say it because I was wondering, could Ben DiNucci control the turnovers long enough to give their team a chance?
I like DC, but I don't. I look at DiNucci just slings the ball. Don't get me wrong, Michael Joseph. They're probably going to stay away from him. He's probably going to be on Gordon like glue, but then all of a sudden, we got Pearson to worry about. So DC's going to have their hands. They're going to have their unless they can run the ball with Smith and Tomu, whatever, Jordan. I'm going to call him Jordan.
Jordan Tiamu.
That guy.
Or Derek King if they put him in for certain RPO plays too, and running plays too, option plays and stuff. But
see what happens, but
see, I
don't know. I just feel this is Seattle. They got in. They're on a little bit of a streak. They got hot behind them.
See, you think like me and the public, Adam, the public thinks that Seattle has a better chance of beating DC than St. Louis does, right? You don't think St. Louis?
I think St. Louis would have beat them too.
You think so?
I do. AJ McCarron was getting in his groove. He was coming back. I don't know. I think this DC team is vulnerable. I could be wrong. I could be right. I don't really know.
I think it's a great pick. I think it's a shocking pick, though. I also just want to ask the question of how do we feel about DC Dragons versus this run offense of the DC Defenders?
I told you, Ron Zook and Jimmy Haslett are defensive minded too, and they know how to coach defense too, like just as good as Greg Williams. They weren't born yesterday in terms of how to coach defense too. So,
but just like D. Gray said, coaches can coach up anything and come up with X's and O's, but it's up to the players, and that's why I'm asking the question, because when we really sit here, there were plenty of times where you and myself, Jamie, really questioned, could anybody stop this running game for the Defenders, as we kept naming Abram Smith player of the week or player of the game. So that's just for me. I'll just put it that way. That's for me what I'm going to be looking at as we get into this exciting week. I definitely feel like this is going to be the game of the weekend. I feel like the champion of the XFL is going to come out of this. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that whoever wins this game is guaranteed to win the championship, but I also don't think that Arlington can keep up with Ben DiNucci or stop this running game. And Houston brings even more questions when going against Seattle. For me, I think they have a better matchup when going against the Defenders, but I think the Defenders still pull it out. So, with all that being said, gentlemen, are there any score predictions as far as just picking a winner?
Houston and Arlington. I think it's going to be a shootout. It's going to be hard for me to pick, but I think I'll say Houston 45-42.
Adam?
I think it's going to be a shootout too. But I was thinking more like 28-24.
Houston, right?
Yes, Houston.
Okay. And then
Who
I think
figured-
for Seattle and DC, I think Seattle does it 35-34.
Adam?
I think DC loses at home. And I'm going to say it's going to be a close game, 21-17, 21-18.
Mm.
So for me, I have DC winning 21-18, and I have Arlington winning in a upset late in the game, 42-40.
So how come you have Arlington over Houston? What's the reason you think?
I think that
Devion
the way,
Smith.
huh?
Devion Smith.
We could go with that. No, I just think that I really like the way that Luis Perez plays football. I think with a defensive coach in Stoops, I think that they're just going to figure something out. And the fact that they have, kind of been on the coattails of a winning team all year, and then they finally get their quarterback, with 3 weeks left to go, and finally have that setup of a passing quarterback, option quarterback, and goal line situations and extra point situations. I just feel like that this might be the game where they can really pull something out in a tight game.
Right, and because they have that, just like Houston has that too.
Right. For whatever reason, I just have Arlington in my gut right now.
Okay, so let's do our championship predictions.
All right. I don't, whatever.
We got to do our championship. Oh, you don't want to do our championship predictions? We did our semifinal predictions.
Go ahead, Jamie. You are fired up, ready to go. I'm going to let you go. Go ahead. I was just saving it for next week's show, but whatever.
Okay. Do you want to save it for next week, or should we just get out of it?
No, go ahead, get it out, because it might be changed. Who knows? We don't even have games not even played yet, but we're doing predictions.
Okay, so our right now our championship games for this week. I got Seattle over Houston, and I think that'll be close. And I'm gonna say that'll be 20-19.
Adam, you going to save yours?
I'm going with Seattle to win it all.
Over Houston, and what do you say?
That's what I'm thinking.
What's the score? Or do you not have one?
I really didn't get that far, but I have a feeling Seattle's going to win. I'm thinking like 35-21, late interception, taken back to the house to seal the game.
Fair. And I have Arlington versus DC, where I have De'Aaron King being the player of the game. Having him with one rushing touchdown, 100 yards, and a passing touchdown, and an extra point conversion. I have DC winning 33-27 over Arlington.
What do you guys? That's pretty good. What do you guys think of the extra points?
Now that I've seen
the
it play
ball being
out,
kicked, or
In the USFL,
no, here in the XFL, where
I think they should kick it like in the USFL. Have both where you could go for one, but have the option to kick the extra point, like in the USFL where they kick the extra point.
I kind of like watching the 3-point conversion from the 10.
I like those. See, I like those and the 2-point conversion and the 1-point conversion. You could keep that, but give the option to kick the extra point like they do in the USFL.
F-
For me, now that I've seen it, I actually like the extra point. I like the going for the option of 1, 2, or 3. I think it changes the way the perspective looks on the game. To me personally, I don't really like a kicker anyway. Just give me the ball at the 25 and let me get the game going. Um, I think that's more also just because of how my high school career went and how the Browns have been without Phil Dawson. But nonetheless, I like the choice of 1, 2, or 3. But I want to rebuttal with that question and ask, how do you feel about overtime?
That's cool. That's cool. That's a continuation of the third and fourth overtime in college that they do after to replace the multiple overtime games. Because I think college does that where you do a shootout where you rotate until somebody doesn't score or until somebody scores at last to wins.
Right,
So that's like hockey. It's a shootout too.
right. Adam, what are your thoughts?
I'm trying to remember. It's like they go for it, fail. The other team can go for it, but then the other team can try and make it again.
So what
You
happens
do it
is like if you and I
continuously
are playing.
until either somebody scores who wins, or if somebody scores and they don't get it, that team wins.
I mean, I like it. I mean, overtime always brings extra drama to the game, so there's no problem with overtime.
No, but it can help the NFL where like instead of having the instead of having the no tie in the regular season.
You mean like Mason Rudolph and the Detroit Lions?
Yeah,
Yes.
but then that question becomes: do you think the CBA allows that kind of rule change due to the fact that they want to keep player safety?
Yeah, but how does the player safety work when a streaming service wants 2 Thursday night games now? So player safety gets thrown out the window there.
I absolutely agree. I don't feel like this. I don't feel like the players. I felt like there was something else under the table that allowed the players to say, "Yeah, we'll accept that." But
But we're also hypocrites because it also means we get to see more football, which means the ratings go up on that other platform, Call us
right,
hypocrites too. So
absolutely.
Do you think for the player safety though, do you think there's a chance that they could say, "Hey, look, yins are both playing on these 4 teams are playing on Thursday night. Is there any chance that we could play 3 games or 2 games on Saturday, or maybe even 4 games on Saturday, then the rest on Sunday, so that team gets an extra day rest for the Thursday game?" Now that there's 2 of them, there's a little more thought process.
the problem is that might piss off college though, Adam, because they got, college primetime on ABC and SEC network and all that. That's a great proposal, but still. College football, they're starting to get as popular as the NFL in terms of ratings.
Well,
So
yeah,
that's the
especially with
thing.
NCAA coming back out for the systems.
Yeah.
It's only going to make the game
What
better
about this
again.
proposal? If you play a Thursday night game, your next game isn't until that Thursday or Saturday, or even that following Monday, like the next week Monday, so that these players have an extra week off before, or extra couple days off before they jump back in.
I like the Monday idea. I think that makes sense. See, these are all great proposals, but it's all about the almighty dollar, and that's basically all Roger Goodell cares about.
Yeah, but can you blame them?
No.
No. And he just signed And he signed one of the biggest contract extensions for a commissioner. So
Yeah. Adam Silver's going to blow that out of the water, but that's another conversation for another day, gentlemen.
But Silver just did one of the greatest moves in basketball. He's finally going to cut down on spending, and he's going to lower ticket prices for next year, which is good. So
I hope so. I'll actually have you on for one of my basketball shows so we can talk about that. But
the new
gentlemen,
CBA, which is good, and he's going to have a regular in-season tournament too to help with the regular season ratings. He said that's going to help boost the ratings because it helped Premier League soccer because they do that. They do in-season tournaments for Premier League soccer, and the ratings have gone up because of it.
yeah, it's supposed to help with tanking and do a lot of other stuff. That's something that they did in the WNBA as well. But again, we'll jump into that on another episode.
Think about it's just like college when you have in-season tournaments. And think about if you want these college guys to help be better for the NBA, do it in the NBA too, just like college, so they're used to it.
Yeah. So are there any other thoughts on the XFL before we head out of here, guys?
I'm looking forward to the playoffs now this week. It's going to be fun.
Me too.
Me too.
So I'm definitely excited, guys. Thank you for coming on the show. Again, thank you for watching Driving to the Top Productions. I'm at Brogdon Evan, also at Talking Sports by the Lake. You can definitely find me on Twitter or at also XFL Football 23. Even when the season is over, just to talk about anything. I cover all sports. I'm working on some partnerships and channels to get a WNBA show and some other things that I want to bring forward with Driving to the Top Productions. Adam, can you tell everybody where they can find you at?
At Sports Talking It, right there on the thing. That was horrible. Anyway, at Sports Talking It, you can find me there. You can email me, message me, whatever. Or just follow me. That'd be cool too. Also follow the Driving to the Top YouTube channel. That'd be good help. Turn on the notifications. We've got some good shows coming up. Still, our Baltimore guys have a lot of stuff coming up, and I don't even know where to begin, but I know they had Mike Bordick on tonight, so that was pretty impressive. Driving to the Top at YouTube. Yeah, we're getting around. We're getting there.
Absolutely. Twitch channel coming soon with some new and exciting stuff. How about you, Jamie? My bad, Adam.
Well, glad you got to me, Evan. I mean, thank you very much. So anyway, guys, you can catch me on Twitter, Jamie Malloy at DJ Dog Tags. I'm constantly growing my followers every single day, and follow me there on my Twitter channel. And you can also check all my writing at DefiantTakesFootball.com. For those who don't know, Defiant Takes Football is a football exclusive content where I write stories on Syracuse college football. I write NFL stories, and I also cover both spring football leagues. So check me out both on my Twitter and on DefiantTakesFootball.com. Thank you so much for listening, guys, all year. You've been a great audience, and be sure to tune in next week on our playoff divisional round recovery, as it's going to be a very special show, and you don't want to miss it. Thank you.
Absolutely. The snap. I love the flair that you bring every week, Jamie. I love to have you guys on and can't wait to see you guys next week. Thank you for watching.
That was new with the snap.
Yeah, we'll do the poetry snap at the end of the championship before we pass it on.
I can't snap with this hand.
I can snap with multiple fingers.
It's not because I can't. It's because I tore my whole freaking hand apart.
Oh, man.
Hey, Adam, you're looking at the guy who couldn't snap at all when he was little, and now I can.
Hey, we all learned something new.
A piece of sheet metal went through this hand.
You're going to have to tell me that story off camera.
I had to have nerve surgery redone to it, and yeah.
Well, I'm glad that it works now, buddy. So yeah,
I still have trouble.
We'll see you guys.
Have trouble reaching my pinky with my thumb.
Well, there are some things you could do to there are some things you can do to help that work out, bud.
I try, man. I stretch it. I have all the what do they call that? But the gum
Motor
bands and
skills.
stuff.
All right.
But again,
We
thanks
keep
for
it clean.
watching.
We try to keep that clean on
PG.
Driving
We
to the
keep
Top
it
Productions. So.
PG.
Absolutely. So
But
again,
I
thank
know
you
we
for
get carried
watching
away
us.
and have fun. I don't care. It don't bother me. But
It's a way
you
to
know.
grow the channel. We got to have fun, you know.
I mean,
Absolutely.
we're soon we'll start bringing in some porn stars and stuff, and we'll bring them on the top.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a little
too far. Too far.
Well, Sirius Radio had Lisa, right?
Yeah, and they also had Howard Stern. So what's your point?
Well, they had Lisa that talks fantasy football on with the guys on Red Zone on Sirius Radio on Sundays.
Oh yeah, I did know about that. But
She was a porn star,
right? But we're digressing into another conversation for
We're
another
not
day.
getting a porn star on our channel, guys.
This we'll talk about this in Boys Club, okay? Anyway.
But again, thank you for watching and peace
I thought
out.
you just said you wanted to be diverse.
I'll see you guys backstage.
Okay.
So does that justify everything that you do?
Excuse me, let me tell you something. What do you think they were doing it for? Because they were trying to save us from poverty? No, they did it because they needed us. It's honor and family and loyalty. And some of us wanted a piece of the action. Now, we weren't educated like the Americans, but we had the balls to take what we wanted.